Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel Risk Modeling Hub. I'm absolutely delighted that you are here today because today we are diving into one of the most critical concepts in credit risk modeling, weight of evidence and information value, or WOE and IV as they are commonly known. Now, before I start, I want to be upfront with you. If you are preparing for data science or credit analytics interview in banking, fintech, or any credit related organization, then this video is essential. We are going to cover everything: the theory, the math, and the Python implementation. I am going to walk with you through real interview questions that you are likely to face. Even talented professionals struggle with WA and IV because they memorize the formulas without understanding the intuition. And that's not what we are doing here. By the end of this video, you will understand not just how to calculate these metrics, but why they work, when to use them, and most importantly, how to apply them in real world scenarios. This is going to be a comprehensive deep dive. So grab a notebook and let's get started. So, today we will first understand what WOE and IV actually mean and why banks care about them. Then I'll walk you through the complete calculation methodology, both manual and using Python. We'll look at practical examples with real numbers, so there's no ambiguity. We'll tackle winning strategies, common mistakes the professionals make, and then we'll prepare with actual interview questions. Finally, I'll show you where this fits in the broader scorecard development pipeline. So, credit scoring isn't new. Banks have been assessing credit risk for centuries, but methods have evolved dramatically. In 1960s, credit officers made decisions based on gut feel and limited information. That was subjective, slow, and prone to discrimination. Fast forward to today, and credit decisions happens in milliseconds using sophisticated statistical models. Weight of evidence and information value emerged from this evolution. They are not new concepts, they have been around decades in the creditors world, but they remain the gold standard for feature engineering and variable selection in credit scorecards. Why? Because they are simple, they are interpretable, and they work. A senior analyst at a major bank once told me, we have tried neural networks, gradient boosting, deep learning, and for credit scoring, WOE based models still outperform most of them because they are stable, transparent, and regulators understand them. That's the reality in credit risk. Regulators, chief risk officers, and business stakeholders don't just care about predictive accuracy, they care about explainability. They need to know why a customer was rejected. WOE gives you that. When a customer asks, why my loan denied, you can say, your income level puts you in a higher risk category. And that's backed by data and mathematics. Let me give you a realistic picture. Let's say you are working for a mid sized bank and every day you receive thousands of applications, personal loans, auto loans, and many more. So you need to decide for which application should we approve this loan or reject it. But if you approve, what interest rate should you charge? And these decisions make your life hell because they impact the bank's profitability and customers' life as well. And making these decisions manually is impossible. Even with 100 credit officers working 8 hours a day, you could only process maybe 500 applications. And you have, let's say, got 5,000 coming in. And that this bottleneck is very real. More importantly, manual decisions are inconsistent. One officer might approve a customer and then another officer can reject him as well. Some decisions might be biased and this creates legal and regulatory problem. And this is where credit scoring comes into the picture. A statistical model says, based on measurable characteristics, income, age, credit history, employment duration, etc., this customer has a 3%, let's say, probability of default. And suddenly decisions become fast, consistent, and defensible. So, you need to select the right variables for your model. Let's say you have got 50 potential variables. But should you use all those 50 variables? Absolutely not. Some variables are predictive and some are just noise. Some variables are correlated with each other, which creates the problem. And this is exactly where W and IV comes in. They help you answer the question, which variables are actually predictive of default? Which one should I include in my model? And the result is that a scorecard that banks use to make credit decisions, customers get a score, typically between 300 and 850, or let's say 900 of a scale. And based on that score, they are approved or rejected. And all of this is powered by WOE and IV analysis. So let's define this precisely. Weight of evidence answers a fundamental question: how well this variable separates the good customers from the bad customers? And in credit terminology, good customers are those who repaid their loans on time, and bad customers are those who defaulted. But honestly, I prefer thinking in terms of events and non events. Non events means no default, whereas events means that default has happened. And WOE measures the log ratio of non events to events within each category or bin. And mathematically, it is written with this formula: logarithm of percentage of non events upon percentage of events. And we do know that these percentages are calculated relative to the total non events and events, and not just relative to the bin size. And this is important. I'll explain you why. So let me break this down with an intuitive example. Let's say the customer aged 25 to 35, we find that 100 customers repaid their loan and only 20 defaulted. And in another bin, customers who are aged between 45 to 55, we find that 200 customers repaid and out of that only 10 defaulted. Now just think about that. These raw numbers, we do think that the second group seems safe, right? And because why? Most of the people have repaid their loan. But for WOE, we need to calculate percentages relative to all good and bad customers and not just within the bins. So negative WOE means that if it is coming after putting in the formula, it means that the bad customers are overrepresented. Whereas positive WOE means that good customers are overrepresentative, and that's the interpretation. But do you think what will happen if WOE equal to 0 comes up? This means that there is an equal representation of goods and bads, and no predictive power is in that particular bin. No predictive power. We'll talk about IV, but let's wind up quickly what WOE. So, larger the WOE, if it is happening, this either positive or negative, the stronger is the separation. A WOE of plus 2 is very strong separation, and a WOE of zero point 0.1 is a moderate, kind of weak. And this is crucial for building scorecards. So, in the final scorecard, bins with positive WOE get positive points, that is, they are rewarding the safer customers. And bins with negative WOE gets negative points, that is, they are penalizing the risky customers. A customer's total score is the sum of all the points that they have across the bins, and that the total score predicts their probability of default. So, customer total score is the sum of all the points across the variables, accumulating all the bins, and the total score represents their probability of default. We do get a prediction related to that. Now, since we have discussed about the WOE tells us that it is talking about the separation within each bin, but we need to know a single number that how predictive that particular variable is, not within the bin. And that's where IV comes into the picture. IV aggregates the predictive power of a variable across all its bin into one metric, and the formula is summation of percentage of non-events minus percentage of events into WI. And basically, for each bin, you calculate the difference in proportions between non-events and events. Proportion. And why this formula? Because the difference, this percentage of non-events minus percentage of events, measures how much the distribution shifts between the two groups. So basically, when you multiply by WOE, you are weighing that shift by how strong that separation is. And bins with larger WOE values contribute more to the total IV. Let's talk a bit about its interpretation of IV. IV less than 0.02, it seems to be not useful. This means that this variable has virtually no predictive power. But if IV becomes greater than zero point 0.5, this means that that variable is bit of suspicious, that is more than strong predictive power, and this is rare. So if for a variable, if we do see that IV is greater than zero point 0.5, we need to investigate, and usually it indicates one of the three problems. That is, first, there can be data leakage, that is, the variable was derived from the target variable. Second, the sample selection bias, that is, your sample isn't representative. Or third, might be overfitting, that is, you created too many bins and captured noise specific to your dataset. So, in practice, here is how the analysts use IV. Let's say you have 50 candidate variables. You immediately exclude, once you computed IV for all the variables, you immediately exclude anything that comes below 0.02. That's a trash. You look skeptically anything between zero point 0.02 to zero point 0.1, and you can confidently include anything which is coming between zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.5, and you investigate anything above zero point 0.5. And by doing this, you went from 50 variables to maybe 10 to 15 most important variables. And then you apply other filters like multicollinearity checks, business logic, stability test, etc. to narrow it down further. And that's the beauty of this approach, that it's objective. You are not relying only on the gut feel or political lobbying from the business stakeholders who insist certain variables must be in the model. You have a data driven and a reproducible methodology. So let me walk you through the complete process step by step, and this is the framework you need to understand before we start coding. First step comes up as the data preparation. So you need to ensure that your target variable is binary, and in credit, this is usually 0 for good, that is non default, and 1 for bad, that is default. Check that you have this coding correct, because it's embarrassing how many people calculate WOE with inverted coding and get very nonsense results. Also decide how to handle missing values. Don't just drop them. In credit data, missing values often carry information. If someone doesn't report income, that might indicate that they are hiding something, riskier behavior. So bin missing values separately. Next comes the binning part. For continuous variables, you need to create bins. So if you have an income variable with values, let's say from 10,000 to 500,000, you cannot calculate WA directly. You need to divide this into ranges or bins. So common approaches include equal with binning, which divides a range into equal intervals. Equal frequency binning, also called as quantiles, and this ensures each bin has roughly the same number of observations. And this is often better because it handles the skewness distributions. For categorical variables, you don't need to create a bin. Each category itself becomes a bin. So, if you have a marital status variable with values like single, married, divorced, each becomes a separate bin. Then you need to count the events and non events. For each bin, you need to know how many observations are events, ones, and non events, that is zeros. Then calculate the percentage, that is the percentage of events in this particular bin, and how many is the percentage of non events in that particular bin. So this normalization is what allows you to compare across all the bins. Then finally you calculate the WE by applying the formula, and also do adjust for, also use the adjusted formula as well, that is non-events plus zero point 0.5 and events plus zero point 0.5. We'll see it across this adjustment in our Python code as well, in because this zero point 0.5 adjustment prevents the log of 0 issue. Because if 0 comes up here, then you cannot take log of this, you cannot take log of this, so always do zero point 0.5 addition so as to avoid the 0 issue in the logarithm. Once you compute your WOE, then calculate the IV and then sum across all the bins to get the IV for one particular variable. And then use the IV scale which we discussed. Assess whether the variable is predictive. And now, before we move to calculations, let me mention something that's critical: the quality. The quality of your binning, which affects everything downstream. So, if your bins are poor, your WOE and IV will be misleading. Good binning should be monotonic, that is, WOE value should be consistently increasing or decreasing across bins. If WOE jumps around positive, then negative, then positive, it suggests either poor binning or truly non-linear relationship with default. Sufficient granularity should be there. That is, you want 10 to 20 beans initially, which calls fine classing, to capture the patterns. Each bin should have at least 5% of the observations, because small bins are unstable, and if a bin has only 10 observations and contains one default, so small sample variation can drastically change your estimates. And each bin has both events and non-events, because if a bin has zero defaults, then you got a problem and you cannot calculate WOE that we discussed. And this usually means that relationship is too non-linear for simple binning. And once you are done with fine classing with 10 to 20 bins, you then do coarse classing. This means merging the adjacent bins with similar WOE values. And this improves the stability and also creates a more parsimonious model. Don't worry, we'll see in the upcoming slides. Now the theory is good, but let me discuss with some real numbers. And this is where it becomes concrete. Let's say you are a junior analyst at a bank and you have been asked to assess whether customer's age is a useful predictor of default or not. You have 100 customer records, and let me show you that how the binning of this particular age group has happened. So I binned it into five groups, that is 18 to 25, 26 to 35, 36 to 45, and so on. So there are 15 customers in total, let's say in first bin, out of which 10 repaid and 5 not repaid, and similarly other classifications as well. So total there are 100 customers, out of which 82 repaid and 18 defaulted. So what do we just observe from this raw data? The bad rate has been calculated by the total number, by the bads in that particular bin divided by the total number of customers in that particular bin. And from the bad rate we observe that, what do you observe? Can you tell me in the comments? So what do you think? So the younger customers do have high bad rate. That's what we observe. And the 56 plus group has comparatively lower bad rate in comparison to the younger ones. But we need to quantify this rigorously, not just by looking at the bins and the bad rate, but more in a quantifiable way. So we calculate WOE for each bin, because from before calculation, if you look at the graph as well, then also you see the count of the goods and bads with respect to basically the bads. If you see the count of bads is significantly lower in the 56 plus groups. So on an average the default rate is 18% and the success rate is 82%, and average age is coming out to be 37.2. But let's quantify this. So in the WOE calculation, if you calculate WOE for each separate bin, you do see that some WOE values are coming out to be negative and some are coming out to be positive. You can put those values in that particular formula that we discussed, and that's how you get WOE values over here. Now look at the trend. The trend talks about that first you are getting negative 0.824, negative of 0.129, and then the increasing value gets started. So this is mostly monotonic increasing, and as age increases WOE is getting the positive. And this makes intuitive sense because older customers are comparatively safer in comparison to the young ones. And this is good winning because WOE trend aligns with the business logic as well. The smallest group, 56 plus, has a lower WOE than 46 to 45. which is slightly a bit non-monotonic. And in real scenario, you might consider merging these two groups, but overall the binning is good. So I do have put my thoughts over here. Now let's calculate the information value. So information value, by putting in that same formula, IV component is coming out to be for each variable point two zero nine. So IV of 0.209 falls in the range of zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.3. And according to our interpretation scale, if you remember that it has medium predictive power. Age is a useful variable for your model, but it's not a star variable like income, but it's definitely worth including. So let me explain the intuition here. We do have interpretation scale, and let me explain the intuition. So the youngest group contributes to 0.129 to the total IV. Out of zero point 0.2, only 0.12 is the contribution. And this is, if you see, it is the largest contribution of all. Can you think of it, if why this is happening? This is because they have strongest separation. Young customers are dramatically overrepresented in the bad group. If you look at over here, the strongest separation, 12.2% in good and 27.8% in bad. So this is the strongest separation. 46 to 55, if you see, it has a smaller proportion of total goods and total bads customers, and hence the contribution is comparatively smaller. And so this is how the mathematics it becomes beautiful. Variables with many small bins and weak separation might have low IV, like this. If you see 26 to 35, not much separation, and hence you see it has the least IV contribution. And this metric naturally rewards clean and strong patterns and penalizes the weak ones. Also figure out, it'll help us figure out the noisy patterns as well. All right, now let's move to Python. Manual calculation teaches us the intuition, but Python automates it for speed and accuracy. So, first we need to load our data and set it up. You can see the foundational code here. So when you run this, you can run it on your own data set, and you can see what exactly the shape is coming, how is the target distribution, and kind of data types mix as well. And also verify that your target variable is binary and coded correctly, because if it shows something unexpected, you need to fix it before proceeding. So you do see that the best practices and everything, the key requirements and the data quality checks using this foundational code, you can apply it on your own data. Now here's the key function for calculating WOE and IV from scratch. I'm including this here because in interviews they want to see whether you understand the underlying math, and not just that you can call a library. So that is why it is important. This function handles the mathematical details, and notice the zero point 0.5 adjustment over here. This prevents dividing by 0 if a bin has no events or non-events. It's a small detail but critical for production code. The function returns two things: a detailed table showing every calculation and the total score of IV. And once you get the total score, that's called the transparency, which is critical while doing the models. And you can see what exactly is happening. Nothing is hidden. Now for production use, there are Python libraries as well that do most of the things for you. Let me show you the approaches from most transparent to most convenient. So first, most transparent is using the pandas that you can see in the code and implemented in your dataset. This is straightforward pandas, no dependencies are here beyond numpys and pandas. Next can be the use of the specialized libraries like Toad or Scorecard. They are built specifically for credit scoring. And here's how you can apply it. So pandas speed is bit moderate, but Toad is very fast. It has specialized features as well, and you can see WOE trends as well if you plot it once you get the results. This is convenient but less transparent in comparison to the first one, and you won't be able to see the calculation step by step. But in practice, you can analyze all the variables together as well, and here's the complete workflow. This can help you to see the this can help you to understand each step, and that after once you do this, you can see the IV summary results as well on whatever the data set and with respect to the number of variables you have. So my result is coming out as that income variable is coming out the strongest of the variables with the IV of 0.487. Then comes the debt ratio of 0.412, credit score of 0.356, age of 0.209, and employment of 0.8087. I do mark the monotonicity relation as well, whether it is following or not, and also the strength. So from this, you would immediately include your top variables. Basically, these are the top five, and there are other variables as well. And you would question the weak ones because employment is coming out a bit weak variable. So, and you would exclude which are the non-useful variables from the whole data set. And that's the objective, the systematic approach that separates the professional analyst from the amateurs. Now, here's something crucial that many people miss. That is the interpretation part, what actually WE means in business terms. So let me use the earlier example, and we found that the customer's age at 18 to 25 has a WOE of minus 0.824. So what does this mean to a loan officer or a business stakeholder? Minus 0.824. So it means that the customer's age between 18 to 25 are 2.28 times more likely to be bad than good. So you might be thinking that I got that WOES minus 0.824, but why am I talking like that? These customers are 2.28 likely to be more than the bad. So what I am doing is, in this formula, I am taking the logarithm from this side LHS to RHS. It becomes the e to the power, and then I am doing the reciprocal of that. That is 1 upon e to the power 0.824. If you do this at your own end, you will get a number of 2.28. And then you can say that young customers are 2.3 times more likely than default. Another critical insight is that WOE should be monotonic. This means as you move through the bins, WOE should consistently increase or consistently decrease. If WOE jumps around, then you need to think of again because it signals one of the two things. One can be that your binning might not be good, your binning is poor, and there can be a genuinely non-linear relationship. Then simple binning hasn't captured very well. So in our age example, you can see that the WO is bit monotonically increasing. Even with a very tiny dip, it is good, it is manageable. So it suggests that the relationship is linear and our binning makes sense. But instead, let's say we have minus 0.824, then zero point 0.6, then minus 2, then plus zero point 0.5, and then plus zero point 0.1. So it's kind of gives us a very oscillating kind of relationship, and that makes our binning bad. So we need to reconsider our binning strategy. First, if binning is bad, then it can create artificial boundaries and don't align with our expected outcomes. Now let's talk about the interpretation of the IV, like how we need to actually use the IV for our variable selection. You have calculated an IV for all the candidate variables, and we do discuss it previously, the interpretation of the ranges from less than zero point 0.02, what it exactly it means, and greater than zero point 0.5 as well. So if greater than zero point 0.5, so you need to stop and investigate before including. And like we discussed, you need to ask yourself that is this variable derived from the target? Is there any sample selection bias, or did you overwin? Let's say perhaps you have 50 bins and then the variable is overwinning. For a particular variable, let's say instead of 10 12 bins, you created 50 bins all at once. That should not be the case. So once you have applied the filters and everything, you typically can go from 50 to 100 candidate variables to final of 10 to 20 variables. And then you do your additional checks, the multicollinearity, which we will discuss in our upcoming video, and the stability checks, and the final business overview. A tip is that over here, that always validate your IV results on a holdout test set, or maybe on a different type period. That's way you can judge your IV methodology, basically the binning methodology. Okay, now let me dive into bit binning, because we are talking too much about that. We do have discussed in our previous video. You can watch my playlist, and there is a I button, you can watch. And because we had do have discussed it deeply there, but let me dive into binning, because there is a lot of people who made mistakes, and good binning is basically the foundation of WOE and IV. So phase 1 is fine classing. Fine classing means it is the initial binning into many categories. And here you are trying to capture all the patterns in the relationship between your variable and default. And method 1 over here is equal width binning, where we divide the ranges into equal intervals. So it is simple to explain, but it often creates very small bins when the data is skewed. Next is equal frequency binning. This method is also known as quantiles or deciles, where we need to ensure each bin has approximately the same number of observations. This is comparatively stable because each bin has sufficient sample size, better for skewed distributions, but binning the boundaries might seem arbitrary. Next is the optimal binning, where we uses the algorithms like decision tree to find the bin boundaries, which maximizes the separation between goods and the bads. So theoretically, this sounds the optimal, but it is complex to implement and risk of overfitting as well. So I practically recommend start with equal frequency binning because it is stable and straightforward. And from Python perspective, you can apply pd.qcut, which creates 10 equal frequency bins. So I do have discussed in detail. So I'll put the link in the I button or in the description if you want to watch the binning concept in detail. Next phase comes the coarse classing. Coarse classing. So after fine classing, let's say you maybe have 10 to 20 bins per variable, but some of these bins likely have similar WOE values. So coarse classing is where you merge adjacent bins with similar WOE values to create a more stable parsimonious result. So the process is that you calculate WOE, let's say for each fine class, then you identify the adjacent bins with similar WOE, typically within zero point 0.1 of the range plus minus of them, and then you merge all those adjacent bins and recalculate WOE for the merged bins, the new bin, the new WOE, and you repeat this process until you are satisfied with the monotonicity. So you already know what are the critical rules of binning, and if you are a bit confused about that, I request you to watch my video on the binning part. There I do have explained in bit detail. So there are some of the mistakes that one can avoid while doing the WOE and IV analysis. First is the target variable coding. That's the most common mistake, because you calculate WOE and get results which makes no sense. Then you try to investigate and you find out that you have coded your target backwards. That is, you used 1 for good and 0 for bad, while the convention is the opposite. Or worse, you inherited code from a colleague and didn't verify anything. So always start with value counts to check if the numbers are making sense. If 0 is more frequent, that is 95% of the data, that's probably good. If 1 is more frequent, and that it means that is unusual. So verify explicitly with your business stakeholders if the coding output is making sense or not. There can be too many bins as well. Someone hands you a dataset with 50 bins per variable, and each bin is carefully optimized. The IV looks fantastic, but then you test it on new data and IV drops by half. So what happened? This means you overfitting. Why? Because you optimize for the specific codes, only the specific parts of your data, training data. So always stick with 10 to 15 of the variables. And more wins doesn't mean better results. It can mean the overfitting the risk part. Ignoring bins with zero events or non-zero events. Let's say you get a bin with 100 observations, all good customers and zero bad customers. You try to calculate WOE and got an error or infinite value because if you remember the log is there in the formula. So the fix is that we have discussed as well, that always use the adjusted WOE with the zero point 0.5 of the variation. Why? Because it will it will create a strong representation, strong separation as well, because these bins represent too strong a separation if you fix the numerator and denominator. So either merge it with the adjacent bin or reconsider if the variable has a non-linear relationship that binning cannot capture. Non-monotonic WOE indicates the poor binning. So always figure out the trend, because if you suspect poor binning, do recourse classing that we discussed or merge bins more aggressively. But if you suspect non-linearity, consider interaction terms or acknowledge them with your business stakeholders. Using the IV without understanding the business context. We do have discussed that, let's say a variable has IV of 0.45. That is strong. You include it as well. But 6 months later, a regulator asks you, why is this variable in your model? And you realize that you cannot explain that variable if it is making a business sense or not. So the variable is predictive, but it is not interpretable. And that will be a nightmare for you. Dropping the missing values. Say you have a variable with 10% of missing values. You drop all those 1000 of rows. Your analysis is now based on only 9000 of the observation. Plus, if missingness is random, your results are biased. If your missingness is random, your results are not biased. But let's say if missingness is non-random, that is high income people are less likely. Let's say income, there is a variable income, and high income people have not disclosed their income, and you altogether remove all those rows corresponding to the missingness, then that can create your results bias. So the fix is that you need to bin missing variables separately. Also, major drawback is that, or major mistake you can say that you can create, is the problem of overfitting, that is not validating the stability. So let me tell you, you calculate WOE or IV on your dataset and it look fantastic. But this data, let's say it is from 2023, and you will be using this model in 2026. So will WOE value still hold? This question must come to your mind. So the fix is that you should do a stability check. Split your data into time periods. Let's say 2023 first half, 2023 second half. Calculate WOE on both. Correlate the WOE values. And if that correlation is coming out to be greater than zero point 0.9 or zero point 0.8, let's say, then it is good. But otherwise, you need to investigate. So the best practice is that always start every analysis by verifying the target variable coding. Use 10 to 20, 15 bins initially, or 20 bins you can say, and then course it to 7 to 8 with 7 to 8 final bins. Ensure each bin has greater than 5% of the observations for both events and non-events. Target monotonic WOE across bins. Always validate it with domain experts. Handle missing values explicitly, and check stability across time periods or populations before deployment. I hope till here the things are clear to you and you do have got a better understanding. So if you're watching this to prepare for an interview, this particular section is now very critical, where I do have compiled some questions asked in the interviews along with their comprehensive answers. So you can now explain what exactly is WOE, weight of evidence, and why banks use it. We do have discussed thoroughly in detail. You can now also tell what's the difference between WOE and IV, but do mention that WOE is at bin level and IV is at variable level, and then talk about the process and how do you connect it with the variable. Now you tell me, if a variable has an IV of, let's say, 0.35, will you include it in your scorecard? So you can think and say it like that by talking in terms of interpretation table, that it is coming in terms of range of zero point 0.3 to zero point 0.5 range, and it definitely is indicating the strong predictive power. We should include it, but before finalizing, you should not straight away say that yes, it is coming in this very range and yes, we should include it. You always top it up that yes, it is has a strong predictive power, but before finalizing, I would likely to check whether its WO is monotonic or not. Are there any multicollinearity concerns, and whether this particular variable is making any business sense or not. And if, let's say, you would recalculate that particular variable, is it stable or not? The stability part that we talked about recently. And are you getting similar-ish results or not? Assuming all the answers are satisfactory, then only you should say yes and include it. Okay. Now let's say a variable has an IV of 0.72, let's say, and your colleague says that include it because it has even more predictive power than the last one. Now what would you say? You should say that it is coming out in a bit suspicious range. It might not be a better, that IV is greater than zero point 0.5, and I mean the last variable, so it is, we should include, because high IV can indicate problem, like we discussed. So these problems should be on your tips. First is data leakage, second is sample selection bias, and third is overfitting. I hope that now you can explain this very clearly in your interview. If IV is greater than zero point 0.5 out is coming out. Now you can explain the binning process as well, and why each binning needs to be at least 5% of the observations. Do let me know in the comments if there is any doubt in this particular question. Explain the binning process and why each bin needs at least 5% of the observations. This 5% of the rule is very important, because if a bin has less than 5% of the observations, it is too small, and then you cannot figure out, because small bins with extreme WOE values can capture outliers as well rather than true patterns, and including them in the model means overfitting. So that's how you should picture out in your interview. And let's say your variable, next question comes to you, let's say your variable has WOE values of minus zero point 0.8, then plus zero point 0.6, minus zero point 0.3, then plus zero point 0.5 across all your bins. So what would you say? What does this non-monotonic WOE tells you? And what would you do? If there is a juggle, there is no trend. I'll leave this question over to you and think about it and let me know in the comments what's your answer to this question. I would repeat the question once again. Your variable has WOE values of minus zero point 0.8, then plus zero point 0.6, minus zero point 0.3, then plus zero point 0.5 across 4 bins. What does this non-monotonic WOE tells you? And then what will you do? Similarly, you can describe now the WOE and IV complete analysis workflow we do have discussed. You can go uh, scroll back to previous, a few seconds, few minutes before, and then we do have discussed. All right, now we have discussed. Okay, tell me, what will you do if there are missing values in WOE calculation? Simple answer, you need to bin separately. Never drop. Unless and until you do have some critical information, never drop. Bin them separately and then figure it out. What will you do? Okay. So these are some of the common questions that one can ask in the interview. And we do, if you have any doubts, let me know in the comments. There is a bit of case study that I did, that is which was talking about that there is a bank credit analytics system, and there was about 20,000 of data. So in there I did income variable WOE analysis and the score points formulation as calculation as well for the income variable. And we don't worry, we'll discuss separately in another video. I did calculate the WOE IV and then calculated the model performance as well. So for me, the 8 variables are coming out very strong with 82% of AUC discrimination, and being with KS being coming out pretty good, 0.52, that is the 52%. And the variables that are coming out to be on from the top perspective are the annual income, debt to income ratio, having the strongest of IB, and credit score on a medium scale, employment duration, and credit strength. So that's a basic check that I did at my end. And what's your recommendation? Is anything else that we can do or not? Because in our next steps, I will be checking the multicollinearity and we'll see if these variables have any correlation between them or not. Because now we, since out of many variables we do have selected a set of variables, we'll then see as a further step what exactly is the multicollinearity talking about, and then we'll think of the building the model. So I think we do have covered a lot of ground today, and let me recap what you have learned and what comes next. So I hope that you have now understand WOE and IV in detail, and you know how to calculate them manually, implement them in Python, and interpret results. And also, don't forget avoiding the common mistakes. You do have seen the real interview questions as well, right? And learn how to answer them confidently. I want you to practice it thoroughly. Also, this is a very professional grade knowledge, because if you walk into an interview and discuss like this regarding the WO and IV the way that we have covered here, that I'm pretty sure that you will stand out. Do not get nervous during the interview. And WIV steps we do have discussed that it basically talks about that you have selected your variables out of a big dump of data based on the predictive power. But that's not done. Coming in our next video, we'll discuss about the multicollinearity check and the variable selection. Just because the variable has high IV, it doesn't mean that it belongs to a model. What if, let's say, you selected 8 variables and 6 of them are highly correlated? That's redundancy. So in our next video, I'll show you how to calculate correlation matrix and identify the multicollinearity, right? And we'll also discuss the various inflation factor as well, popularly known as VIF, and the strategies for handling the correlated variables, which one to keep, which one to exclude finally, and we'll discuss bit of Python as well. And then we'll move on to our with our final variable set, we'll move on to building the logistic regression model. I know that you might be having a bit of understanding, but we'll deep dive into and get into detail, because we need to then further understand the scorecard scaling, how that PDO and everything, the formula, and from the regulatory and fairness validation perspective as well, because transparency is something that always regulators favor. So, what are your actions right now? Have you thought about? You first need to practice the manual calculation. Download any of the small dataset available on the Google. Bin a variable by hand and then calculate WA and IV without Python. Then you need to run the Python code on your that particular dataset. Pause the video where we do have discussed the Python snippets, and that's how you will learn. Always prepare for interview by practicing the questions that we have discussed, and have some numbers in your mind, the interpretation tables and all. So our next video on multicollinearity and variable selection is coming in 1 week or so. So I don't want you to miss. And if you're watching this, you have chosen our channel for a reason, because we do provide the practical Python code that you can immediately use, and I do help you to prepare for your interview questions with explanation and answers. So thank you for investing time with us, because creating these videos took many times of research and testings and writing and everything and recording. So if you found this video helpful, I request you to please like and subscribe, because this button means everything to our channel growth. And your engagement tells us that our content matters, and it helps to reach more professionals who need this knowledge. And it's very much challenging, I would say, because it genuinely impacts people's lives. I would really want everyone to master. We'll together learn, and I'll see you in our next video on multicollinearity and variable selection. Until then, happy learning. And thank you. We'll meet you in the next one. Thank you.